Greetings from Brother Stephen. I'm a disciple and witness of Jesus Christ to all the inhabitants of the earth. I present to you as a witness the gospel of the kingdom. In this lesson today, titled The Second Day, and this one's when Elohim created the earth's core, we're going to be going over Genesis chapter 1, verses 6 to 8. If this is your first time tuning in, I have a YouTube channel called The Church of Jesus Christ. These two images at the top is the last two lessons that I did. The first one was called The First Day Light. We go over Genesis chapter 1 verse 3, and that is when Elohim created the galaxy. And then the first day light is a continuation of that study, and we cover Genesis chapter 1 verses 3 to 5. And in that lesson we go over what the Hebrew word light means. And again, this lesson, the second day, and this is when Elohim created the earth's core. We're going to be covering Genesis chapter 1 verses 6 to 8. Before we get into those main subsections of scriptures, we just want to have a quick review. And again, what I'm reading is my translation after studying and updating the Bible. Again, you have to go back to the previous studies that I did to see why I made these changes in the King James Version Bible. It says, the plan was Rasheth. So created Elohim and ate the heavens and the earth. When the planet was a glob of water and had no soil or life and was in total darkness. And this picture just kind of represents that glob of water that was in the beginning that Elohim used to create what we know today as the earth. It says, and by the breath of Elohim, the glob became a globe. So it was just a globe, a glob with no form, no shape. And by the breath of Elohim, he formed it into a globe. Verse 3 says, and Elohim said, let there be a galaxy. And a galaxy appeared. And again, this gives us some indication that the other galaxies in the universe are probably beginnings for you get different species, different planets, but a galaxy, according to the scriptures, represents at one point in time the beginning of a civilization or kingdom within that galaxy. So again, verse 3, and Elohim said, let there be a galaxy, and there was a galaxy, and Elohim saw the galaxy, that it was good, and Elohim divided the light from the darkness. Now again, when you say he divided the light from the darkness, this is referring to that globe of water that he just formed. Half of it receives light, half of it does not. Again, this is a map of the galaxy. As the earth passes through each galaxy, the part of the earth that faces the constellations is the side of the earth that receives light from the constellations. This other side is dark because it is not receiving light. It is not close to the constellations, but it's pretty far away. And therefore, this is the day side, this is the night side, or this is the light divided from the darkness, light divided from darkness. And call the light day, and the darkness he called night. Again, he called the light day, darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning, which was 24 hours, was the first day. Now we're going to read the King James Version, Oxford edition of 1769 first, and then I'll get into updating and making corrections to the translation. Verse 6 says, and God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. So one of the things I want to talk about before I get into correctly translating these verses and explaining what they mean is that this is where the false doctrine from flat earth derives from. They read verses 6, 7, and 8, and as they're reading these verses, they just kind of draw a picture, again, with their carnal mind. This is why the scripture said carnal mind is not subject to the things of God. So they kind of come up with this image of what they call flat earth, of what they think, or according to their religion, what the earth is. Now, they claim the earth is in the center of a ball of water. But the ball of water that the earth is in the center of is a sphere still. So that technically will still mean that the planet, because the planet just does not include the earth. It includes the stars and it includes the water, the earth, and everything between it. So in other words, although they saying the earth is flat, they saying the globe or the world, which includes this water, is still a sphere. And one of the things I always say, the reason you know that the earth, they call it a flat earth, the reason you know it's not flat, because even in the picture here, as you can see their earth, the earth is not flat. You still have mountain and valleys. Flat means to have no type of mountains, no valleys. It is just flat. And as you can see here, this image that they have here of the earth is not flat anyway. But we'll talk about this picture a little bit more as we continue to go through this lesson. You know, actually, another thing that I want to point out while I'm on it now is another error already in this image is that they have the stars within the waters. And the problem you have with this is God created the galaxy before he created the firmament. We haven't even got to the firmament yet. And I'll scroll back up just so you can see. It said, and Elohim said, let there be a galaxy, and a galaxy appeared. So according to their diagram, he put the galaxy in the water before he even put the firmament, because the firmament is not created till after the galaxy. So right then and there, this diagram doesn't make any sense. And again, they're just taking verses 6, 7, and 8. They've drawn this diagram, and then they're using other scriptures and false teaching to justify this diagram. That's all flat earthers have done. So we're going to continue at verse 6. And Elohim said, let there be a firmament. So the first thing we're going to do is go over a couple of scriptures, because it is extremely hard to define what the firmament is. But we're going to use a couple of scriptures in the Bible so we can have an idea of a description of the firmament, instead of trying to look it up in the Hebrew, because it's just still hard to explain what the firmament is. So again, when you go to Genesis chapter 1 verse 6, as you can see, that word firmament comes from the Hebrew reference number 7549. When you go to Genesis chapter 1 verses 8, it says, and God called the firmament heaven. So the firmament is heaven. When you go to Genesis chapter 1 verses 26, it says, and God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let him have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowls of the air. And as you can see, the reason I have this word air here is because the heavens and the air is pretty much the same thing. And one of the things we're going to do is we're going to look up some of these words so we can understand what the firmament is. Because it says the firmament is the air, it is the heavens. So the first thing I have up here is that Hebrew reference number 8064. And as you can see, I have it pulled up here. This is that Hebrew word for heavens. And then this is the outline of the biblical usage of that word. And as you can see, they use this same word from here where it say fowls of the air to describe the heavens, or sky. And it says as the invisible universe, the sky, the atmosphere, the heavens. So again, really the firmament, the heavens, the air, it's all kind of talking about the same thing. Now, basically what I have here is the definition of atmosphere. And it says the envelope of gases. So the atmosphere, the air we breathe, the firmament is an envelope of gases surrounding the earth or another planet. And as you can see, some of the synonyms to atmosphere: air, sky, heavens, firmament. So in actuality, that firmament is that envelope of gases surrounding the planet. And that's kind of what I have here so far, because we was at God created, he shaped the waters into a globe, and then he gave it an atmosphere. And this is what the firmament is talking about: an envelope of gases surrounding the planet. Now, when you go to the flat earth theory, they say the firmament is a glass dome around the earth. The Bible does not say the firmament is a glass dome. The Bible says the firmament is the sky. So what their firmament would be is what's underneath this glass dome. They have no scriptures justifying this firmament being a glass dome whatsoever, because where they have the sky is the actual firmament, not this glass dome. Now, once you realize the firmament is an envelope of gases, which is the air or the sky, now you have to remove this glass dome that they call the firmament. And now that this water that they have above their firmament, what's holding this water in the air? Nothing. It will simply all fall down onto the earth, because there is no dome, no firmament dome. The firmament is referring to the skies, the heavens, the atmosphere, the gases that we breathe that sustains life. And another reason why you know there's not water above the sky or above the firmament is because when we look up, we'll see fish and whales and everything swimming above our head. So with that alone, makes absolutely no sense. This is the sea. What's stopping fish from swimming up above our heads and above the birds? And we should be able to look up with a telescope or binoculars and see fish above our head in water. But we can't, because there's no water above our heads like this. So we're going to continue going back to verse 6. It says, and Elohim said, let there be a firmament in the middle of the waters. So the first thing we're going to do is figure out, where did he put this firmament first? And he said he put the firmament in the middle of the waters. So basically what I have here is a diagram kind of opening that planet of water up to the center, and this red dot represents the middle, the center of that globe of water. And now whatever he put here, it gave our planet an atmosphere. And now basically the next picture I just have here is exactly what it is that's in the middle of our atmosphere, and that is a molten core. He put a molten core in the center of the water, and that molten core, because it's so hot, it is where we get our atmosphere from on the earth. So again, we have that hot core and the atmosphere that it produced. Now, this is all called the firmament. This is the firmament, actual material hot core, and the gases it produces is the firmament. And this is the dome that is around the planet. It is not a glass or plastic. It is simply gases. And now we're going to go over a few scriptures, just so you know, according to the Bible, what is in the depth of the earth, the depth of the sea, the center, what is there. To do that, we're going to start off with 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 4. It says, for if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment. This is Christ's coming judgment. So it's saying those angels that sinned was cast down into a hell. And what we're going to do is look up this word that hell is translated from in the King James Version Bible, and that's G5020. And as you can see, I have G5020 pulled up here. And the Greek word is tartaro. And when you translate that into English, it's Tartarus, not really hell. The correct translation in 2 Peter 2 and 4 should be Tartarus. And now this is just coming out of an encyclopedia showing you what Tartarus is. It says in Greek mythology, Tartarus is the deep abyss that is used as a dungeon of torment and suffering for the wicked, as the prison for the Titans. So, in other words, this Tartarus, one thing it mentions is the deep abyss. And I'll just scroll up here real quick. If you go back to, actually, I'll cover it later. I apologize about that. I'll go over it later. Let's see, scroll back down here. So the next question I have here is, where is this hell that 2 Peter 2 and 4 speaks about, that the angels that sin is cast down into hell? So again, where's this hell? Where is this Tartarus located at? So that's the first thing we're going to do, is answer that question. And Revelations 9 and 1 answer it. Now, remember, when you go to 2 Peter 2 and 4, it says that the angels that sinned was cast into Tartarus, or the deep abyss, in chains of darkness to be preserved unto judgment. And when you get to Revelations 9 and 1, this is that judgment. The seventh trump in the book of Revelations is that judgment. And when we get to the fifth trump, we see 2 Peter chapter 2 verse 4 being fulfilled, and it lets us know where is hell / Tartarus. It says, and the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key to the bottomless pit. Now, this lets us know that the hell or Tartarus is on the earth, and here in Revelations 9 and 1, it's called the bottomless pit. But what we're going to do is we're going to go to G12 in the Greek Concordance to see where this word bottomless pit derives from. And I already have that open up too. That's G12. Here is G12. The Greek word is abyssos, and when you translate that into English, it is not bottomless pit, it is the abyss. So in other words, and when the fifth angel sounded, I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key to Tartarus, that dungeon of torment and suffering that 2 Peter 2 and 4 says the angels that sinned was cast down to Tartarus. Tartarus is in the earth. It is the abyss. Now I just want to give another scripture to kind of confirm that the abyss is a place of torment, because this is not coming out the Bible. We call it the deep abyss, used as a dungeon for torment and suffering. We're just going to confirm that torment and suffering, because what they're torment and suffering from is they're burning in this hot molten core. So when you go to Luke chapter 8 verses 26 to 31, this is when Christ is casting demons out of possessed people into pigs. It says, and there arrived at the country of the I'm sorry, sometimes I just stumble over this word, Gardanese. I'm sorry, it might come to me later. And there arrived at the country of the Gardanese, which is over against Galilee. And when he went forth to land, there met him out of the city a certain man which had devils long time, and and wore no clothes, neither abode in the house, but in tombs. When he saw Jesus, he cried out and fell down before him with a loud voice, said, What have I to do with you, Jesus, Son of God Most High? I beseech you, look what he says, torment me not. Now, why is he saying, torment me not? Verse 29 tells you, for Jesus had commanded the unclean spirits to come out of the man. For oftentimes it had caught him, and he was kept bound in chains and shackles. Shackles, these fetters talking about basically on your feet, and he broke the bands. He broke the chains, and was driven of the devil into the wilderness. And Jesus asked him, saying, What is your name? And he said, Legion, because many devils were entered into him. And they, look, the demons, these angels that sinned, that was cast down, they besought, they begged Jesus that he would not command them to go to the deep. So now here we have Luke chapter 8 verses 31. So we can see where that word deep comes from. And as you can see, deep comes from that Greek reference number 12. So the word that should be there is the abyss. They was begging him not to torment them in the abyss, which is in the center of the earth. When you go to Genesis 1 and 2, when it reads in the King James Version, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. This face of the deep is referring to the center of that glob of water because it was deep. That was the abyss. So the abyss is actually mentioned in Genesis chapter 1 verse 2. When you look up the Hebrew reference number 8415, I have that here. It's the home, how you pronounce it in Hebrew. But as you can see, that Hebrew word, the home, means deep, depth. Is in the same thing, the abyss. This is just the Hebrew word for the abyss. So that surface of the deep, he formed it into a globe, and he put in the abyss that hot molten core that we refer to as hell. It is not hell on earth. It's literally hell in the center of the earth. So now this takes us back to these images. One, the flat earth. Another problem they have with their diagram of the flat earth is they don't make room in the scriptures for the hell that exists in the abyss. They have the abyss as the great deep here, but there's no fire. You don't see no angels being in chains and being tormented. You just see water. And another problem you have, and I'll just do it this way really quick, is if you just flip this like upside down, that's not deep at all. That's pretty close to the surface of the waters. So they pretty much replaced the earth with the abyss. The earth is not the abyss. The earth is not in the center of this sphere of water. The deep is, and the deep right now is a place of torment called the abyss, or you can even say Tartarus, where demons are being held until that judgment, until Christ comes in judgment, that fifth trump. So now we have verse 6. It says, and Elohim said, let there be a molten core in the center of the globe. And that's a globe of water. This is just my translation. So people, when they read it, they understand it. And let it divide the waters from the waters. Now, when you go back to the flat earth model, here's the problem they have with verse 6. These waters are not divided. They are connected. This word divided means to completely separate, and these are not completely separated. But when you look at the ocean, this kind of represents what happened when Elohim put that molten core in the center of the earth. It separated the clouds from the ocean. And then we're just going to look at the definition of clouds here really quick. It says a visible mass of condensed water vapor floating in the atmosphere. And this is what the scriptures mean when they say he separated the waters from the waters. He completely separated the clouds, which are just water in the atmosphere, from the ocean. And again, the flat earth model doesn't even explain where the clouds come from in their diagram, because actually the word clouds, unless you translate like I do, is not mentioned in the book of Genesis in that first chapter when it's talking about creation. So you have to ask them, if these are the waters separated from the waters, what are these waters right here? These are the waters separated from the waters. It's the clouds from the ocean, from the surface of the deep. So now we're back at verse 6. And Elohim said, let there be a molten core in the center of the globe, and let it separate the clouds from the ocean. And Elohim made the molten core. And when he made the molten core, that's when he also made the atmosphere. It says, and that atmosphere is what separated the clouds, which were under the atmosphere, from the oceans, which was above. The King James Version Bible say firmament, but this firmament is referring to the hot core, the ocean that is above or completely around the center of this molten core in the center of the earth. So pretty much the firmament is not just referring to the atmosphere. The firmament is referring to the physical molten core and the atmosphere. And later on in scripture, he changes the name of this firmament, the gases that is coming from the actual firmament, to heaven. And then this is still the firmament, but we know it is called the abyss or Tartarus. And there's fallen angels in the center of the earth, according to the scriptures. So now another question I just have is, how did Elohim create a molten core in the middle of water? And I have a video I want to play for you that I think confirms scientifically and biblically of how Christ created this molten core in the middle of the water.
Sonoluminescence.
The first time I saw sonoluminescence was in a darkened room. I was transfixed to look at this spherical flask of fluid. And you look into the center, and in the center see a glowing blue-purple light, which could be seen with the unaided eye. It looked like a star in the heavens.
Seth Putterman called it the star in a jar, a tiny spot of bright light contained in a flask of liquid. This star in a jar is made when a sound wave is passed through a small bubble inside a flask of liquid. And this sound wave makes the bubble do something remarkable. First it expands, then it collapses. And this collapse happens so violently that vapor molecules trapped inside the bubble slam together and heat up so much that the bubble gives off an incredible burst of heat and light, several thousand times a second, giving the appearance of a star. What made the phenomenon so exciting was the temperature of this star in a jar. On its surface alone, The light burns at tens of thousands of degrees. And Seth Butterman now contemplated a tantalizing possibility. Could the core of the collapsing bubble be even hotter? Hot enough for fusion.
One of the mysteries of sonoluminescence is to determine exactly how hot the interior of the bubble gets. In the sun, the interior can be millions of degrees, hot enough to cause fusion. And the thought crossed my mind that perhaps inside the collapsing bubble, the interior of the bubble might also get hot enough to cause fusion.
If so, this would be something truly amazing. By simply bombarding tiny bubbles with sound waves, temperatures of over 10 million degrees would be created. And nuclear fusion, the same reaction that powers the sun, would be happening almost effortlessly here on Earth.
So, close that real quick. Now, basically, and we're kind of start back up here from the top, and I'm going to scroll my way down. When it talks about when the planet was just a glob of water and had no soil or life and was in total darkness, and the breath refers to the words, the voice, the sound waves of Elohim. Just like his voice turned that glob of water into a globe. Just like when Elohim said, "Let there be a galaxy," and a galaxy appeared. He literally put that hot molten core in the center of this water, literally by his sound waves. And this can be proven scientifically. It is called sonoluminescence. And so I want to show you that video because I think it's pretty neat, because it gives some factual information regarding the Bible and how God, Elohim, put this hot core by the sound of his voice, sound waves, into the center of a globe of water that exceed temperatures just as hot as the sun. Then it's also funny in the video that they said it's resembled a star. Well, the sun is a star, and pretty much what we have in the center of the earth is a star like the sun that burns at extremely high temperatures. So, in closing, again, if you're learning anything interesting, you want a fellowship, study together, receive more of these videos. If you subscribe to the Church of Jesus Christ YouTube channel, after I do a recording, I post them there first, and I will eventually post them on a Facebook group that is also called Church of Jesus Christ. It's dedicated to people who watch those videos, have questions, want to study together, and if for any reason you can't find the YouTube channel or the Facebook group, my name is Lord Stephen Range. That's my real legal name. You can look me up on Facebook and message me and just let me know you can't find the groups and you're interested in subscribing and joining. So with that being said, this concludes this gospel.